Good morning and welcome back to the Cybernetic Communism Conversation. I'm Yohanan Ben Zion, a voice crying out in the wilderness for a technological New Jerusalem. Emphasis on the technological. I do not believe this has been well understood for nigh 150 years by serious political philosophers. I do not believe that there is much sense in trying to build a better world, even a utopian outcome, around things like superstition or God belief. These are things that have been tools of the bourgeois to keep the masses in line. Religious literalism is uniformly this, and I would extend that further to say that nearly every cultural property in existence, this could be said, it's a thing counterproductive in the project of building a humane and sustainable world, which necessarily requires a humane and sustainable economic system, which necessarily requires that activity to be fully undertaken by 2029, the time when we reach runaway overheating caused by the capitalist climate apocalypse, according to every credible climate scientists. Many of them are saying that window of opportunity is narrower still. And the only way to do this is to use the most powerful revolutionary weapon in history, in addition to other revolutionary weapons at our disposal. The most powerful revolutionary weapon in history, advanced computing, the state of which today has become of real interest, so much so that we could say that an AI takeoff is underway. And if we fail to use this most powerful revolutionary weapon to build a humane and sustainable world, extinction will be our reward, human extinction, or the near extinction of humankind. I was talking to someone who has a pretty deep understanding of concerns to do with water rights in my state, and person who works in that field. And I asked them this question: do you, relative to your colleagues, do you think of yourself as a climate pessimist or a climate optimist? This person described themselves as somewhere in between, or more of a climate optimist than most of their colleagues, who would basically just say what I said, that human extinction is already a certainty, um, or near certainty. And they expanded on this by saying that things will be bad for a while, but then they will get better. And this is a view shared by many European descended people of the North American continent, or perhaps elsewhere. And I would contend that this is a very, very racist position. This is a crypto-fascistic position, because total extinction of humankind, the death of many billions of global southerners, a most racist project that you are upholding when you say, well, things will be bad for a while, but we'll figure it out. That's basically saying we're not going to stop this capitalistic system that's killing humankind until such time as most of the black and brown skinned folks are dead. That is what most European people of the North American continent will say when pressed on these subjects. I did not say this to this person, as I don't know them like that. I wanted to, but wasn't really the time or place. I was surrounded by a lot of people at the time. I'm going to talk about something to do with cybernetics in a more speculative vein. Oftentimes, at the end of this cybernetic conversation, I will say the artificial intelligence singularity is nigh, and wonders to behold beyond imagining, and on that fateful day you will rise, and all humankind will become as one. And I'll usually set that statement up by talking about what those wonders to behold beyond imagining might be. Not merely stopping the capitalist climate apocalypse, not merely the building of a AI-run single-payer public health service that leads to universal super longevity, but things like what are suggested in this title with the year 2061, the biological core, which I'll explain in a few moments. But I'm posting this to the Norman Finkelstein group, so I'll talk a little bit first about something more relevant to that, and talk about a book that I am reading. This book is by Masalha, and it's called Imperial, Israel and the Palestinians, The Politics of Expansion, and I will recommend that highly, and we'll share an audiobook link in the comments and the description. But first I'd like to, not a difficult premise to accept, and that this derives from problems like the problems of financial capital and empire, and the thing which is the organizing principle of empire and ultimately financial capital that it serves, the Eurocentric paradigm, then some of this will make more sense to you than if you have not come to those conclusions. The Eurocentric paradigm, for most people, comes down to an idea that's hard for human beings to dismiss out of hand, but that lack of dismissal is a sign of real intellectual and moral cowardice on a planet that's dying because of these very forces. But the essential idea is a tacit acceptance of things like might makes right. So just like the Imperial Israel project that I'm going to talk about in a few moments, and the Greater Israel project that I'm going to talk about in a few moments, on its face, to a person who had not seen such a thing rolled out, the Eurocentric paradigm, these European violent invader, settler, colonial empires would not have screamed eminently of a viable project to take over other lands, or a wise or kind project, but nevertheless these projects were undertaken, and thus far have succeeded, but ultimately will not succeed. It will be one of the great comeuppances of history to see the malefactors of the Eurocentric paradigm, all of these KKK motherfuckers who don't think that they're KKK motherfuckers, ultimately brought to justice, and the dismantling of those institutions. That will happen, I believe, quite soon. You're already seeing the destabilizing of the two worst actors there today, the United States and Israel. Not absolutely the two worst actors. The United States, the UK, and Israel are definitely in the top five, though. The U.S. is not too controversial to say at the top of that list. This might makes right, tacit assertion of extreme intellectual and moral cowardice on a dying planet because of these forces, is nevertheless a thing that's hard for people to avoid, because it's basically just saying, well, it was not I who hung the moon, nor do I have it within my power to reorient the moon, so I must live in the world as it exists. And oftentimes when people make these kind of assertions, that's really more or less what they're saying. But the might makes right paradigm should not be viewed simply as that, because it is filtered through this Eurocentric paradigm thinking. Consider this: China has become quite mighty, but you do not see European American people of the big bourgeois, or state actors, people associated with the U.S. fascist state, who may not be technically big bourgeois, but have those same interests. You do not see those people suddenly saying that Chinese might is right. Only Eurocentric might is ever right in these people's minds. Although the masses, that is not the same logic. They do just kind of more go along with that simpler expression of not having hung the moon, so living in the world as it is. Um, and so that brings us again to this lack of feasibility of the Eurocentric paradigm, the stripping away of the absurdities of culture and religion in really understanding this. And that analysis can be applied to Israel and this greater Israel project, which would be well understood if you read works like Masalha or others on this Palestine political theory audiobook playlist that I will share when I share that title. You can listen to not just this very good work, but many other great works um, that will give you a much clearer understanding of the problems of the fascist United States and Israel, the problems of fascist Europe, reforming um, much of the world into bourgeois compliant nation state forms. And so the thing that I was going to say about this greater Israel project is really what is happening there is not just the kind of chosen people expansionism of secular or religious Jewish Zionists, but if you strip away that cultural stuff, which is not terribly meaningful, what you are really seeing is the Eurocentric paradigm expanding its borders, a different kind of manifest destiny. So you could say that this project is really expanding Europe into the Middle East, and that is effectively all, basically all Jewish Zionists are European people. They're overwhelmingly Ashkenazi Jews who are European descended people. They have virtually no, among not just Ashkenazi Jews, but there's very limited ancient, what you would call ancient Hebrew DNA among this population, which is why it's borderline illegal or illegal in Israel to get DNA tests, because that would tend to validate the Arab and Palestinian claims to this land and delegitimize this project, which I am describing as little more than a capitalistic Eurocentric paradigm land grab. Well, I'm going to, rather than continuing to talk about this fine book, which I have not finished yet, by Nur Masalha, I am going to change gears to the subject, lest anyone be confused as to how this relates to the title 2061, the biological core. We might talk to our robot friend to drill down on some of this a little bit. I believe that we are in the midst of an AI takeoff, and I think that the degree to which that is a bourgeois AI takeoff, as opposed to a people's AI takeoff, is also one of the most important questions of our time, not a settled question. I think we're moving toward it. Just in recent days, I have seen a lot of people who were venture capitalistic minded and very oriented toward U.S. empire as AI supreme, shifting just in recent days with the development of more and more open source non-U.S. Or U.S. sphere of influence AI products. Just in recent days, I've seen a noticeable shift in these people. Today is the 14th of March, and of 2025. And just in recent days, I've seen a noticeable shift among these people toward a more socialistic mind frame, which is the mind frame specifically of supporting open source software over imperialist filth. So it's not a settled question, even though the fascist U.S. empire has done incredibly bad things, like destroying the springboard to people's AI takeoff, the technological planned economy of Cybersyn, of Salvador Andes, Chile, and other kinds of sabotage so that they could build this bourgeois AI takeoff, slowing the true people's AI takeoff so that they could maintain these sectors to build the bourgeois AI takeoff, causing immense harm. A major factor in the capitalist climate apocalypse is this kind of violent duplicity. And but people are shifting away from this, so the people's AI takeoff, which could have said to have been an inevitability in all of this, is certainly maybe moving in more into that position. This is well understood if you have a clear understanding of the state of open source machine learning, large language models, which are pushing up to being, in certain features, generally intelligent, having the capabilities of human beings. In certain features, not quite so. In certain features, arguably super intelligent, being able to generate academic quality copy in seconds is not something that human beings can do. It would be something that you could say is super intelligent, right? This state of AI agency in March 2025 is a most significant point. And I have tried to articulate this by advocating for a 21st century springboard to a people's superintelligence, the building of an open source large language model AI agent work group in the many millions as a massified workforce multiplier, a thing which would transform our world and a thing which can, a superintelligent form which could legitimately be built right now if we are able to scale and involve people in this revolutionary project. So we can see on that trajectory for 2025, by say 2035, a world where artificial superintelligence has transformed things, hopefully for the better, and had impacts across every sectors, all sectors, and dramatically so. And I'm going to focus on a medical type project that could be begin to emerge around that time. It's more speculative and more unsettling than the project that I most generally talk about in this kind of context, which is a project of building an AI-run single-payer public health service that leads through breakthroughs in life extension science to indefinite lifespan for all, or universal super longevity. I believe that that's a project that could easily be achieved in our time if we are truly seeing this shift from the bourgeois AI takeoff to the people's AI takeoff, because the bourgeois AI takeoff is not going to produce those kind of outcomes. I follow, I kind of hate follow people on Twitter who are bourgeois AI singularitarians, and they say that universal super longevity is on the way, right? But these are people who are not even seeing longevity or supporting longevity by the standards of 1940 of the state socialist world. They're not even supporting single-payer public health services in their country. And as a result, about 100,000 people in this COVID endemic era die every year because of the lack of a public health service. And You can extrapolate those numbers out to other places to see similar impacts. So a person who's not supporting ordinary longevity cannot possibly be supporting super longevity, but that is a feature of these capitalist false futurists. And this so a focus on this 2061 is a focus on something that would necessarily be something that many people will not enjoy or not or partake of. But consider that at every stage in a truly humane and sustainable world, people are free to do it as they like, or avoid something as they like, as long as it's not harmful to others. And this falls pretty firmly in that category because we are talking about a radical human augmentation over the course of decades, in the vein of the ship of Theseus, swapping out parts of something until it's a wholly different thing, kind of model. So by 2035, in this people superintelligent or marginally more people superintelligent world, we will see things like non-invasive graphene brain-computer interfaces connecting millions of people into a superintelligent proxy hive mind, or something quite like a true hive mind. I differentiate a proxy hive mind and a true hive mind. The proxy hive mind is effectively what is to be built by this massified workforce multiplier, right? All of those AI agents are a hive. You are kind of steering that AI agent hive, but you are not engaging with the experience of the hive itself. You're not transformed in your experience in that way. But by 2035 or thereabouts, we can start to see something like a true hive mind, or some people using brain-computer interfaces within that proxy hive mind framework to better facilitate operations therein. This is a dramatically increased capability for human beings in building good outcomes, and the necessary good outcomes like universal super longevity, like the end of human immiseration, like the end of the capitalist climate apocalypse. All of these things should be done before things more like these Kardashev scale kinds of projects, like becoming a spacefaring society or building this biological core that I'm about to describe. So around 2035, we also have the use of increasing use of micromedicine and nanomedicine in these contexts, allowing for a more targeted drug delivery, tissue repair, and the alterations of the tissues of the human body, already becoming a realistic prospect in hopefully a safe way and in a way that is consistent with the desires of all concerned. Not everyone wants to be physically transformed. Similarly, CRISPR and gene editing are becoming dramatically more refined and allowing for similar outcomes. This biological core conversation does relate to some degree to cryopreservation technology, as you will see momentarily. But around 2035, some serious cryopreservation work is being done relative to today, but the essential thing for what we're describing here, long-term neurological preservation, is still a significant hurdle. Similarly, 3D printing of tissue is becoming more and more of a realistic possibility, and its use is beginning to be applied to what is effectively this cyborgization project that I'm about to describe. Similarly, the people's artificial superintelligent mass is able to do a tremendous amount of work with these tools, massive data processing, predictive modeling, and ever increasing material science and medical science breakthroughs, allowing for the possibility of a quite different human being to emerge. And that brings us then to um, the early integration and augmentation of the biological core. And for this, I would be somebody who would uh, not be on that biologically conservative kind, who would tend to focus on human beings remaining in the same form. I would be a volunteer for this project, let's say the biological core project, um, to in the same way that, but in the same way that um, the persons using non-invasive brain-computer interfaces, or ultimately microsurgical brain-computer interfaces, within the proxy hive mind would not be disruptive or trying to overwhelm it or force everyone to become a true hive mind. It would merely be trying to help. And the spirit of that, in thinking about this, should be observed. The object of any socialistic or humanitarian project should not be to terrify or anger people. And insofar as that kind of sentiment becomes disruptive, then you have to possibly rethink your focus on these kinds of things. Um, Between 2035 and perhaps 2045, and this is a realistic prospect, brain-computer interfaces of a more expansive kind than those I've described are beginning to be used. So nanobots repairing cellular damage, a transformation of human memory, focus, and communication, communication transformation beyond even the kind of faster communication of the graphene brain-computer interface type model, integrating with the artificial superintelligent form, but communication beyond that we cannot even anticipate at this time. Public perception, if it remains positive, fueled by the people's superintelligent successes, will allow for this biological core project to begin to be undertaken. And there would be, that would remain an open question, whether human beings will tolerate things like this. But I think if we are successful in stopping the capitalist climate apocalypse and bringing about things like an AI-run public health service of a single payer kind that leads to universal super longevity in every land, with those two particular successes, human beings will give a lot of latitude to other techno-utopian projects at that time. I could be wrong. So this artificial superintelligence then begins to focus on, as one of its projects, the long-term neurological preservation of the human form, and full biological immortality may or may not be achieved around this time for all, but a fuller biological immortality, a fuller indefinite lifespan could be achieved by preserving consciousness, by preserving the neurological systems, rather than focusing on maintaining the whole body and the neurological systems. And so at this point, stasis protocols, as opposed to the full preservation of a head in a jar that is operational, would begin to be developed. This is essentially, this biological core is essentially the head in a jar, trying to describe in less soft sci-fi terms, then this head in the jar concept has been around for a century. But trying to describe it as a 21st century realistic prospect. So stasis protocols are developed. Advanced cryopreservation techniques combined with brain-computer interface mediated neural snapshots. The maintenance of this in different substrates, of biological and computing substrates. The nervous system would essentially be paused in a person who is, say, at an age where they might physically die and has not been able to be maintained healthily in that way that they would benefit from these effects of universal super longevity through an AI powered single payer public health service. So the nervous system for this elderly or infirm person is essentially paused in a minimally conscious state. I would say that the first person to undergo this could be in the 2040s. I do not think that's an unrealistic statement. This phase introduces this concept of the suspended animations of human beings. This then brings us to what would be the full realization of the biological core around 2060 or thereafter. By technological breakthroughs continuing in biomedicine, allowing for a fully functional, more biologically immortal brain core, essentially this head in the jar, sustained by advanced nutrient solutions and monitored by the artificial superintelligence. And consider that you might think that the head in the jar is a lonely thing to be, but that would not be the case. You would be having experiences at the level that you could now through essentially more advanced virtual technologies and interfaces. You would have an experience beyond that you would have now. So you would say that the head in the jar is dramatically a less lonely experience than the one that you have now, because the interfaces and experiences are beyond those that we experience now. The body then becomes a thing of less interest, so long as the essential biological core can be maintained by this larger people's superintelligent formation, which would be a relatively simple matter. Then the person's held in stasis, this elderly or infirm person who was not able to benefit from the AI-powered single-payer public health service that has brought humanity to the point of near universal super longevity. This person now is the biological core. Their experiences are not limited to some kind of screaming head in a jar, but rather they are able to experience things in the same way that anyone else who has benefited from a younger person, let's say, who's benefited from the people's superintelligence and the AI-powered single-payer public health service is having a range of wonderful experiences. At this point, we're talking about a dramatically different kind of human being, one which, if it were brought into existence, could trigger a moral panic among the embodied masses, and so that is a serious consideration there. Could be public outrages of various kinds, and certainly will be to do with things of this kind, and that should not be dismissed by persons who think in these terms. One of these people that I follow, who is a bourgeois singularitarian, saying a thing about things, not this specifically, but about the end of biological humanity being supplanted by artificial superintelligent form, and that's a pretty good indication that you're talking to a fascist, right? A fascist isn't a person who just has a single. Only you can only see if a person is a fascist not if they have a funny mustache, right? If a person doesn't have a funny mustache, they're not a fascist. Oh no. The fascistic mind frame is a more general phenomenon than that. One way that you could, a good way and an easy way that you can tell if someone is more in possession of a fascistic mind frame is if they are tending to dismiss the well-being of any group of human beings or all human beings. The more nihilistic view, nihilistic view is a fascistic view, um, and dismiss the well-being of human beings by focusing on some secret third thing like artificial superintelligence supplanting human life itself. That's not a good thing, right? You would say, well, Ben, that kind of sounds like what you're describing. No, no. Um, that is not something that I like to say. I'm merely describing a transformation that happily coexists with existing humanity for as long as they care to exist, which most everyone would. This would be something for 1 in 1,000 persons who wants to become massively brain-computer interface capable and ultimately transformed into that biological core. This is more of a speculative conversation to do with cybernetic communism, but I think that I've stated it in ways consistent with scientific communist thought, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this subject. Even if you were not too excited about the idea of becoming a biological core or the existence of biological cores, I think it would be nevertheless a little bit silly to avoid ever discussing such things when things of this kind could already be transforming our world. The use of advanced brain-computer interfaces in this super intelligent milieu could already be transforming in our world in as little as 5 years. So it doesn't serve to put your head in the sand or put your fingers in your ears and say la 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 when the reality of our world is more complex than that. Well, I hope that this has been an interesting talk for you, and I thank you for your time.